The recovery team found the mission commander wandering in the Nevada desert, 1,700 miles from where the capsule crashed, with no memory of how he got there and sand in his lungs that matched Martian soil composition exactly. He couldn't explain the 3 months he'd been missing, but his body told a story: radiation burns in patterns that looked like writing, and surgical scars from procedures done with technology Earth didn't possess. Under hypnosis, he described the alien base as a testing facility, a place where an ancient race had conducted experiments on primitive species from across the galaxy. The base's computer systems were still active, still collecting data, still sending signals to places beyond our understanding of space. What made NASA classify the entire mission at the highest level wasn't just the base itself, it was the discovery log they found in the commander's suit pocket, written in his handwriting but in a language he'd never learned. The log described hundreds of species brought to Mars over billions of years, each one tested, studied, catalogued, and then released back to their home planets to see how they evolved. Humanity was entry number 10,847 in the database, first collected 60,000 years ago, returned to Earth, and monitored ever since through automated probes hidden in our solar system. The final entry in the log was dated tomorrow, and the translation was simple. Final evaluation complete. Subject planet shows acceptable development, harvesting phase authorized, collection fleet deployed. That was 47 years ago, and according to the deep space monitoring network that NASA keeps secret from the public, something massive just entered our solar system and is heading straight for Earth. I read those words 3 times before my hands started shaking. The document on my screen looked official, NASA letterhead from 1976, classification stamps covering half the page, typewriter text that had been scanned at some point, but it was the handwritten notes in the margins. I recognized that cramped, angular writing. It belonged to my Uncle Dennis, who'd put a gun in his mouth 2 weeks ago in his trailer outside Socorro. I was in the parking lot of a truck stop near White Sands, New Mexico, my laptop balanced on the steering wheel. My cousin Travis was inside taking a leak, and I had maybe 3 minutes before he came back and saw what I was looking at. The thumb drive we'd found hidden in Uncle Dennis's ashes, yeah, I know how that sounds, contained 47 files. This declassification request was dated October 2023, stamped denied in red ink. Uncle Dennis had written in the margin, "They're still lying. Viking 3 was real. Jacobson is still alive." I clicked to the next file. A photograph loaded, grainy, overexposed, showing what looked like a landing site. Red soil. Equipment I didn't recognize. And in the background, something geometric that didn't belong on any planet in our solar system. Travis knocked on the truck window. I slammed the laptop shut and stuffed the thumb drive in my pocket as Travis climbed back into the passenger seat. He smelled like urinal cake and cheap air freshener. "You look like hell," he said, cracking open a Red Bull. "You see a ghost or something?" "Just tired." I started the truck, hands steadier than they should have been. "Let's get this over with." We drove the remaining 8 miles to White Sands Missile Range in silence. Travis kept glancing at me, but I couldn't tell him what I'd seen, partly because I didn't understand it myself, partly because Uncle Dennis's note had been clear looking at the files was dangerous, and I'd just spent 10 minutes scrolling through classified documents that supposedly didn't exist. The guard at the main gate checked our IDs twice. I explained we were here to scatter ashes at one of the observation points, showed him the cremation certificate, he made a phone call, kept us waiting 20 minutes in the desert sun before finally waving us through. "This place gives me the creeps," Travis muttered as we drove past weathered bunkers and radar dishes pointed at the sky. Uncle Dennis worked here his whole life and died broke. What was the point? I thought about the margin notes I'd seen, dates, coordinates, names with question marks. My uncle hadn't just been a telemetry technician, he'd been tracking something. The files went back decades, showed a pattern of classified missions that officially never happened. Viking 3 was just one entry in a long list. We parked at Trinity Site, where they detonated the first atomic bomb in 1945. Seemed fitting somehow. Uncle Dennis had always said this place held secrets that would vaporize everything you thought you knew. I'd assumed he was being dramatic. Now I wasn't sure. Travis carried the urn, actually just a simple wooden box, while I grabbed the ceremonial shovel we'd brought. The desert stretched out in every direction, flat and hostile. Heat shimmers made the horizon wobble. "Should we say something?" Travis asked. He wouldn't want that. I opened the box and we took turns scattering the ashes. The wind caught most of it, carrying my uncle away in grey clouds. I thought about how he'd spent his last years alone, drinking himself numb, sitting on knowledge that could have made him famous or rich or both. Instead, he'd stayed silent until whatever he knew finally killed him. My phone buzzed. Email notification. I almost ignored it, but the sender name made me freeze. Dennis Coughlin, 1947 at protonmail.com. That was impossible. I'd watched them cremate his body 5 days ago. Travis was walking back to the truck, probably trying to give me a private moment. I opened the email with fingers that suddenly felt numb. The message had no subject line, just 3 sentences. "Blake, if you're reading this, you open the drive. I set this to send automatically if I died before finishing what I started. Meet me at the coordinates below tonight at 10 p.m. Come alone. They're watching. Below that, 33.6783 degrees north, 106.4754 degrees west." I recognized those numbers. They pointed to a spot about 15 miles northwest of here, in the restricted zone where the public wasn't allowed, the Jornada del Muerto, the journey of the dead man. Spanish conquistadors had named it that in the 1600s because so many travelers died trying to cross it. My uncle couldn't have sent this email. Dead men don't schedule messages. But the alternative, that someone else had access to his email, knew I'd opened the drive, and wanted to meet me in the middle of nowhere, wasn't exactly comforting. I should have deleted it. Should have driven straight to the nearest FBI office and handed over everything. The thumb drive, the classified documents, the whole mess. Let someone else figure out what the hell was going on. Instead, I screenshotted the coordinates and deleted the email. Travis was leaning against the truck when I got back, scrolling through his phone. "All done?" "Yeah." I climbed into the driver's seat. "Hey, you mind if I drop you at your hotel? I need to take care of something tonight." He gave me a look. "What kind of something?" "Uncle Dennis left me some stuff to handle. Work-related, boring technical crap." "At 10 at night?" The archive office has weird hours. The lie came easier than it should have. "I'll be back before midnight." Travis studied me for a long moment. We'd grown up together, spent summers causing trouble in Albuquerque, shared enough secrets that he could usually tell when I was full of it. But maybe grief gave me cover, because he just shrugged. "Whatever, man, just don't do anything stupid." Too late for that. I'd already looked at the files, already read about a Mars mission that never officially happened, about a commander who came back wrong, about something massive heading toward Earth 47 years ago, according to the documents. Which meant whatever was coming might already be here. I dropped Travis at his hotel in Alamogordo, promised I'd pick him up for breakfast. Then I drove back toward White Sands, taking the long way around, checking my mirrors for anyone following. The sun was setting, painting the desert in shades of rust and shadow. In 6 hours, I'd be driving into restricted military territory to meet someone who was definitely dead. My phone buzzed again, another email, same sender. "P.S. They found Jacobson 3 months ago. He's been in a facility in Nevada this whole time, kept alive on machines, still talking about the base, still counting down the days. You need to see the video file labeled August 1976_final. It'll explain everything. Or ruin you. Probably both." I pulled over, hands shaking. The sun had nearly set, and in the growing darkness, I could see lights moving in the sky that didn't look like planes. Something was coming. Had been coming for 47 years. And my dead uncle wanted me to know the terrible truth before everything changed. I sat in my truck in a gas station parking lot in Alamogordo, laptop open, staring at the file labeled August 1976_final.avi for 20 minutes before I found the nerve to click it. The video started with static, then resolved into grainy footage of what looked like a press conference room. The timestamp in the corner read, August 23rd, 1976. A man in a NASA polo shirt sat at a table, his hands folded in front of him. His name tag said, Commander William Jacobson, Viking Program. He looked normal. Tired, maybe, with dark circles under his eyes, but normal. Nothing about him suggested he'd been wandering in the desert with Martian sand in his lungs and burns that looked like alien writing. This is a voluntary statement, Jacobson said. His voice was flat, rehearsed. I want it on record that what I'm about to describe happened exactly as I'm telling it. No embellishment. No confusion from stress or isolation. What we found on Mars was real. The camera shook slightly and someone off-screen said, Commander, we've been through this. Viking 1 and 2 are still operational. There was no third mission. Because you erased it. Jacobson leaned forward. July 17th, 1976. We launched from Vandenberg on a modified Titan Centaur. 40-hour burn to Mars using an experimental propulsion system that shouldn't have worked but did 3-man crew. Myself, pilot Hugh Brennan, and systems engineer Roger Katz. We touched down in Cydonia Mensae on July 20th. I paused the video. Cydonia Mensae. I'd heard of it. The region on Mars where people claim to see a face carved into the rock, back when Viking 1 sent those first photos conspiracy theorists had gone wild with it in the 70s. But the official explanation was always pareidolia, humans seeing patterns that weren't there. I clicked play. The landing site was chosen because of thermal anomalies detected by Viking 1's orbital surveys, Jacobson continued. Something was generating heat in patterns that didn't match geological activity. When we got there, we understood why. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a photograph, held it up to the camera. Even through the grainy video, I could see what looked like a massive structure half buried in red sand, geometric, deliberate, alien. The base was approximately 3 kilometers across, Jacobson said. Seamless construction, no visible joints or seams. The material was something like polished obsidian, but it gave off no reflection. Light hit it and just stopped. We spent the first 2 hours trying to find an entrance. Brennan suggested we try the obvious. Walk up to what looked like the main door and knock. A sound escaped my throat, something between a laugh and a sob. They'd knocked on an alien door. It opened, Jacobson said. Not right away, took about 30 minutes. Then this section of wall just melted upward, like it was made of liquid inside was. He paused, rubbed his eyes. Inside was a facility, that's the only word for it. Corridors, rooms, equipment, everything still functional after God knows how many millions of years the lighting activated when we entered. The air was breathable, and the walls were covered in what we eventually understood was a catalogue. The video cut to different footage, handheld camera, shaky, moving through what had to be the alien base. The walls were covered in symbols, but between them were images, thousands of images, creatures from 100 different worlds. Some humanoid, some insectoid, some things I couldn't even begin to describe. Every species had a designation number, Jacobson's voice continued over the footage. Next to each number was data we couldn't fully translate, but the patterns were clear, dates of collection, dates of release, success rates. We found humanity on the 3rd day. Designation 10,847. Collection date translated to roughly 60,000 years ago. The camera zoomed in on one section of wall. There, among the alien symbols, was an image, a primitive human, Neanderthal maybe, or early Homo sapiens. And next to it, detailed anatomical diagrams, genetic sequences, maps of Earth that showed Ice Age coastlines. They took us, Jacobson said, 60,000 years ago, took samples of humanity, studied us, experimented on us, then returned us to Earth to see how we'd evolve, and they've been watching ever since through automated probes hidden in our solar system. The video cut back to Jacobson at the table. His hands were shaking now. On the 4th day, we found the command center. That's when everything went wrong. Katz figured out how to interface with their computer system. Don't ask me how. The man was brilliant with pattern recognition. He accessed the database. That's when we learned about the Harvest Protocol. He pulled out another photograph. This one showed what looked like a star chart, but with notations I couldn't read. According to the database, we're not the only species they seeded and monitored. There are thousands. And when a species reaches a certain level of technological and social development, they harvest it. Collection fleet deployed. Entire population processed. The base logs showed it happens every few thousand years. Different worlds, different species. Jacobson's voice dropped to almost a whisper. The entry for Earth was marked complete. Evaluation finished. Harvest authorized. Fleet deployment date translated to. He looked directly at the camera. It translated to the day we landed. July 20th, 1976. We tried to leave, Jacobson continued. Ran back to the lander, started the ascent burn. That's when Katz started screaming. Said he could hear them in his head. Said they were already here, hidden, waiting. Brennan tried to sedate him, but Katz opened the airlock. Just opened it. Sucked himself out into the Martian atmosphere. We watched him die through the window. The video flickered. When it came back, Jacobson looked older, greyer. I don't remember the trip back to Earth. Don't remember landing. First thing I remember clearly is walking in the Nevada desert with sand in my mouth that tasted like rust and copper. They found me 3 months after we launched. Officially, we never went anywhere. The mission didn't exist. Brennan's family was told he died in a training accident. Katz was listed as killed in a car crash. Someone off-screen said, "Commander, you need to stop." Why? So you can keep lying? Jacobson stood up. Something massive entered our solar system last week. I know because I can feel it. In my bones, in my teeth. They did something to me on that base. Put something inside me that lets me hear their signals. And they're saying the same thing over and over. Evaluation complete. Harvest authorized. The video cut to black, but there was audio underneath, barely audible. Jacobson's voice panicked. They're not coming from space, they're already here. They've been here the whole time, buried under our cities, hidden in our oceans, waiting for the signal. And we're not going to stop them because we don't even know what we're looking for. We think aliens will come in ships, but they're already wearing our faces, speaking our languages. The audio cut off. A new clip loaded, different location, different date. The timestamp said, June 2023. This time, Jacobson was in what looked like a hospital room, surrounded by machines. He looked ancient, skin papery, eyes sunken. But he was alive, still alive, 47 years later. "Blake," he said, looking directly at the camera. "If you're watching this, Dennis finally worked up the courage to tell someone. Good. You need to know what's coming. You need to understand that everything you think you know about human history is a lie. We didn't evolve naturally. We were designed, tested, cultivated like crops." His monitors started beeping faster. "The harvest starts in 3 days, November 13th, 2023. Not from space, from inside. They're already among us, have been for decades, replacing people in key positions, military, government, science, waiting for the signal, and when it comes..." He coughed, a wet rattling sound. "When it comes, they'll reveal themselves, all of them. Millions. And they'll begin processing 7 billion humans with the same efficiency they've used on 1,000 other worlds." The video ended. I sat there in my truck, breath coming in short gasps, mind trying to process what I'd just seen. November 13th. That was today. The harvest was supposed to start today. My phone buzzed, the coordinates again. And below them, one more line. "You've seen it now, can't unsee it. Come to the meeting point. I'll explain the rest. And Blake, they know you've watched the video, so hurry." I looked at the clock. 9:47 p.m. The coordinates were 15 miles into restricted territory, through terrain I'd never driven before in complete darkness. I had 13 minutes to get to the middle of nowhere to meet a dead man and learn how to stop the end of the world. I started driving, knowing I wouldn't make it. I killed my headlights 2 miles from the coordinates and drove by moonlight, following a dirt access road that probably hadn't seen traffic in years. The truck bounced over ruts and rocks, and I gripped the wheel hard enough to make my knuckles ache. My phone had lost signal 10 minutes ago, but I'd memorized the route northwest into the Jornada del Muerto, past the old cattle trails toward a spot marked on my GPS as abandoned research station, restricted. The clock on my dashboard read 10:14 p.m. I was late. Something moved in my peripheral vision. I slammed the brakes, and the truck slid to a stop in a cloud of dust. When the air cleared, I saw them. Lights in the sky, not planes. These moved wrong, changed direction too sharply, hovered in ways that violated physics. 3 of them, maybe a mile up, forming a triangle pattern. My uncle's voice echoed in my memory. When you start seeing the numbers, Blake, don't ignore them. The lights blinked out simultaneously. I sat there for 30 seconds, engine idling, trying to decide if I'd really seen them or if exhaustion and fear were making me hallucinate. Then my phone buzzed, despite having no signal. New message. Keep driving, quarter mile ahead, park behind the concrete bunker. They're scanning the area every 8 minutes. You have 4 minutes to get inside. I drove and the bunker appeared like a wound in the desert. A low rectangular structure half buried in sand, concrete streaked with rust and graffiti that looked older than I was. The kind of place the military built in the 50s for nuclear tests and then forgot about. Or pretended to forget about. I parked behind it like the message said, grabbed my laptop and the thumb drive and ran for the entrance through sand that felt wrong under my boots. Too soft. Too warm for November. The metal door hung open. Inside was darkness that swallowed my phone's flashlight. I stepped in anyway because what else was I going to do? Drive home and pretend I hadn't watched a video of a NASA commander describing the end of the world. Close the door, a voice said from the darkness. Male, elderly, definitely not my uncle. I pulled the door shut. The bolt slid home on its own with a heavy clang. Lights flickered on. Old fluorescent tubes that hummed and buzzed. The bunker was bigger than it looked from outside, stretching back into a series of concrete rooms. Equipment lined the walls. Old computers, radio gear, stacks of paper files. And sitting at a makeshift desk made from stacked crates was a man who looked like death had forgotten to collect him. Commander William Jacobson. He was thin in the way terminal patients get thin, skin stretched tight over bones, liver spots covering his hands. But his eyes were sharp, focused, and very much alive. The hospital equipment from the video surrounded him. Portable oxygen, monitors, an IV drip hanging from a coat rack. "You're supposed to be in Nevada," I said. "In a facility." The video said what Dennis wanted you to believe. Jacobson gestured to a folding chair. "Sit down, Blake. We don't have long, and there's a lot you need to understand." I sat, my legs were shaking. "You sent the emails, not my uncle." "Dennis helped me fake my death 3 months ago. Well, fake it again. I've technically died and been resuscitated 14 times in the past 47 years. Their technology won't let me go." He tapped his chest. "Something they put in me on Mars. Keeps repairing damage, restarting my heart, dragging me back. I'm a walking experiment that won't end." "The government knows you're alive?" "Some of them. The ones who've been replaced." He said it casually, like he was discussing weather. "About 6% of people in positions of federal authority aren't human anymore. Started in the 80s. Slow replacement over decades. They look like us, sound like us, have all the original person's memories. But they're not. They're biological puppets, controlled by something else. Something that's been waiting underground since before humans built their first cities." I wanted to call him crazy, wanted to laugh and walk out. But I'd seen the video, seen the base, seen proof that humanity was just another experiment in an alien catalogue. "Why tell me?" I asked. "Why not go to the media, leak everything?" "Because they control the media, they control the narrative. Dennis tried going public in 1998, posted everything on early internet forums within 6 hours. Every server hosting his files crashed, every backup corrupted. 3 weeks later, he had a heart attack that the doctors said should have killed him. They were sending a message, stay quiet or die." Jacobson stood up slowly, walked to a filing cabinet, pulled out a folder. But they made a mistake. They assumed Dennis would stay scared. Instead, he started gathering evidence, building a network of people who knew the truth. Scientists, military, even a few politicians who figured out they were being replaced and managed to fake their own deaths before the substitution happened. He dropped the folder on the desk. Inside were photographs, recent ones. People I recognized from the news, from Congress, from corporate boards. Each photo had a date stamp and notation. Replaced 2018. Replaced 2021. Replaced 2023. How do you know? I asked. Because I can hear them. Jacobson tapped his temple. Whatever they put in me on Mars, it's connected to their network. I hear their communications, feel when they activate. It started in 1976 and never stopped. Drove me half insane for years until I learned to filter it. Now it's just background noise, like living next to a highway. He pulled up his shirt. His chest was covered in scars, but that wasn't what made me flinch. Under the skin, something moved. Pulsed, like wires or circuits, but organic. Flowing like veins, but glowing faintly blue. I'd seen something similar in nature documentaries. Bioluminescent jellyfish off the coast of Japan. But this was inside a human body, spreading from his sternum toward his shoulders in branching patterns that looked almost like circuit boards. Christ, I whispered. They're testing us, he said, the whole species. Have been for 60,000 years. Nudging our evolution, introducing technologies, watching how we use them, nuclear weapons, internet, genetic engineering. Each advancement is a test, and we keep failing. Failing how? We're too violent, too tribal, too focused on short-term gain. According to their database, 93% of species that develop nuclear weapons destroy themselves within 200 years. We're on year 78. They've decided we need correction. He sat back down heavily. That's what the harvest is, not extermination correction. They'll process 7 billion humans, remove the aggressive tendencies, restructure our psychology, and release us back to Earth to start over a species-wide factory reset. My hands were shaking again. That's insane. It's efficient. They've done it to 46 species before us. Sometimes it works. The species becomes peaceful, builds paradise planets, joins some kind of galactic community. Sometimes it doesn't. The species loses its drive, stagnates, dies out within a few generations. He met my eyes. Either way, we won't be us anymore. Everything that makes humanity human, our art, our passion, our capacity for both love and hate, gets stripped out like defective code. So what do we do? That's the question Dennis spent 30 years trying to answer. Jacobson pulled out another file, thicker than the first. There's a failsafe built into the base on Mars, a way to reject the harvest protocol, mark humanity as too dangerous to process. If we can transmit the right signal, the system classifies us as a contaminated sample and quarantines Earth indefinitely. They leave us alone, but they also cut us off. No more alien technology, no more nudges. We're on our own, for better or worse. What signal? That's where it gets complicated. He spread out technical diagrams I couldn't begin to understand. The base responds to specific neural patterns, thoughts, emotions. Jacobson's theory, and he was smarter than anyone gave him credit for, was that the signal had to come from someone they've already modified, someone with their technology inside them. Me. Then why haven't you done it? His face darkened. Because I've tried. 47 times over the years. Each time I get close to transmitting, my body shuts down. The things they put inside me won't let me sabotage the harvest. It's programmed into my biology. I can't fight it any more than I can will my heart to stop. So we're screwed. Maybe. Maybe not. He pointed at my laptop. There's another file on that drive. One Dennis spent 15 years creating. A simulation of the signal. If we can broadcast it at the right frequency, at the right time, through the right equipment, it might work. Might convince the system that a human host sent it, but it requires access to NASA's deep space network, specifically the transmitter at the Goldstone facility in California. That's impossible, yeah. The facility's locked down, heavy security, and even if we got inside, even if we transmitted the signal, there's no guarantee it would work. We'd be betting everything on 30-year-old data and the hunch of a dead engineer. I stared at the laptop, at the files that contained humanity's last desperate gamble. When does the harvest start? Tonight. Midnight. The replaced humans will receive their activation signal and begin the process, rounding up populations, herding them to processing centers that have been built underground over the past decade. Most people won't even realize what's happening until it's too late. They'll think it's a natural disaster, or a pandemic response, or martial law. By the time anyone figures out the truth, billions will already be processed. The lights flickered. Jacobson's monitors started beeping rapidly. "They're scanning again," he said. "Found the bunker. We need to move." "Move where?" "There's a truck outside, keys in the ignition. Dennis left it for you. Drive west. Don't stop until you reach Goldstone. And Blake..." He grabbed my arm with surprising strength. His skin was hot, feverish. "If you can't get inside, if you can't transmit the signal, then at least let people know the truth. Record everything. Spread it everywhere. Make it impossible to hide. Give humanity a fighting chance, even if they're fighting blind." Something heavy slammed against the bunker door. Metal shrieked against concrete. Jacobson pushed me toward the back of the room, toward a second exit I hadn't noticed. "Go. Now." "What about you?" "I'm already dead. Have been since Mars. Since 1976. Now get out of here and save the rest of us." The door buckled inward. I ran. I burst through the back exit into cold desert air that tasted like ozone and copper. Behind me, the bunker erupted with sounds that weren't human, clicking, chittering noises like insects magnified 1,000 times. I didn't look back. Couldn't afford to. Whatever had found Jacobson would find me too, if I hesitated even a second. The truck Jacobson mentioned was parked 50 yards away, a battered Ford Ranger that looked like it had survived multiple wars. I sprinted for it, laptop clutched against my chest, keys jangling in my pocket. The driver's door was unlocked. I threw myself inside, jammed the key in the ignition. The engine turned over on the third try. I floored it, tires spitting sand, heading west toward the access road. In the rearview mirror, I saw the bunker's entrance tear open. Something emerged, multiple somethings, moving on too many legs with bodies that bent in ways that made my eyes hurt to follow. The lights in the sky reappeared, converging on the location I'd just fled. They were hunting me. I killed the headlights again and drove by moonlight, pushing the truck as fast as I dared over terrain that wanted to flip me into a ditch. My phone buzzed, signal restored. A cascade of messages loaded, all from the same unknown number. "Stay off main roads. They're tracking vehicle patterns. Head to Lordsburg, safe house at 304 Pyramid Street. Don't stop. Don't trust anyone. Midnight approaches." Lordsburg was a small town on the New Mexico-Arizona border, about 90 miles west. From there, Goldstone was another 500 miles across Arizona and into California's Mojave Desert. Even if I drove straight through, even if nothing went wrong, I'd be cutting it dangerously close to midnight. I checked the laptop. Battery at 47%. The signal file Dennis had created was enormous, 2.3 gigabytes of compressed data that would take specialized equipment to transmit. I couldn't just upload it somewhere and hope for the best. Had to reach Goldstone. Had to access their deep space network. Had to not get caught by whatever those things were behind me. The access road connected to Highway 380 after 3 miles of teeth-rattling dirt. I risked the headlights once I hit pavement and pushed the speedometer to 80. The desert rushed past, endless and dark, punctuated by the occasional distant ranch light. At this hour, I had the road to myself. Or thought I did. Blue lights appeared in my rear view, state police. I wasn't speeding, well, not much, and this truck was probably legal. But if they ran my plates, if they made me stop, if they asked questions I couldn't answer while the clock ticked toward midnight. I slowed down. The cruiser matched my speed, staying about 50 yards back. Didn't hit the siren, didn't try to pull me over. just followed watching. My phone buzzed. "Don't stop, they've replaced local law enforcement. Keep driving." The cruiser accelerated, coming alongside me. I glanced over. The officer in the passenger seat was staring at me with eyes that caught the moonlight wrong, reflecting it back like an animal's, like a cat's eyes, but the wrong colour. Too pale, almost silver. His mouth opened, and even through 2 windows and highway noise, I heard the clicking sound. The same one from the bunker. I stomped the accelerator. The Ford's engine roared and I pulled ahead. The cruiser stayed with me. A second one appeared from a side road, joining the chase, then a third. They weren't trying to stop me, they were herding me. I saw the roadblock too late. Spike strips stretched across both lanes. I yanked the wheel hard right, left the highway in a spray of gravel, and bounced into the desert scrubland. The truck bottomed out twice, metal screaming, but stayed moving. Behind me, the cruisers followed off-road, their searchlights cutting through the darkness. "Lordsburg compromised," my phone buzzed. "New destination, Deming, 108 East Cedar Street. Truck in garage. Switch vehicles." Deming was another 40 miles west. I could see it on the GPS, a small city right on Interstate 10. If I could reach the interstate, I'd have a straight shot across Arizona. But first I had to lose 3 police cruisers that were definitely not being driven by humans anymore. The desert here was rougher than the Jornada, more rocks, more scrub brush, arroyos that could snap an axle if I hit them wrong. The truck's suspension groaned with every impact I wove between creosote bushes, took a dry creek bed that aimed roughly west and prayed I didn't hit a boulder I couldn't see. One of the cruisers got too ambitious, took a turn too fast, and rolled. I watched it tumble in my mirror, throwing up dust and metal. The other 2 kept coming. My phone rang. I answered on speaker, eyes locked on the terrain ahead. "Blake?" The voice was Travis. "Where the hell are you? I've been calling for hours." "Travis, I can't explain right now. You need to come back to the hotel. There's people here looking for you. Federal agents. They say Uncle Dennis was involved in something illegal, and you might have evidence. They're really insistent about talking to you." "Travis, listen to me carefully. Get out of that hotel right now. Those aren't federal agents." "What are you talking about? They have badges, IDs, everything." "They're not human. I know how that sounds, but you need to trust me. Get out. Don't let them touch you. Drive to El Paso, check into a different hotel, and wait for me to call you." Silence. Then, "Blake, are you having some kind of breakdown? Because you're scaring me." "I'm scared too, but I need you to do what I'm saying, please. The agents are knocking on my door. They say they just want to ask me some questions about—" "Don't open it. Travis, do not open that door." I heard the sound of a lock disengaging, Travis saying, "Can I see your badges again?" Then nothing. The line went dead. "Travis, Travis!" No answer. I tried calling back, straight to voicemail. One of the cruisers pulled alongside me again. The driver's window rolled down. I saw the thing driving, something wearing a police uniform like a costume, features that approximated human but didn't quite convince. It raised something that looked like a radio but pulsed with that same blue light I'd seen in Jacobson's chest. I swerved left, sideswiped the cruiser hard. Metal shrieked. The thing in the uniform didn't react like a person would. No flinch, no curse, just recalculated and came at me again. I hit the brakes suddenly, let it shoot past, then veered right toward the interstate I could see in the distance. The second cruiser caught my rear bumper. I felt the truck start to spin, fought the wheel, somehow kept it upright. The lights of Deming appeared ahead. Not many, but enough civilization. Witnesses, unless they'd already taken the town. I hit the interstate doing 60 and accelerated to 90. The cruisers followed but kept their distance now, just pacing me. They'd given up trying to stop me directly, which meant something worse was waiting ahead. The GPS showed Deming in 2 miles, 10:47 p.m., 73 minutes until midnight. My phone buzzed with a final message. 108 East Cedar, white garage, keys under driver's seat of blue Mustang, equipment in trunk, drive fast. They're everywhere now, Blake. Harvest has already begun in major cities. People are disappearing by the thousands. You might be the only one left who can stop this. I took the Deming exit at 70, ran a red light at the empty intersection, and found Cedar Street. The address was a small house with a detached garage. I pulled in, killed the engine, and sat there for 5 seconds just breathing. Travis was gone. Probably processed already, personality erased, turned into whatever those things were. My cousin, who I'd grown up with, who'd helped me scatter our uncle's ashes just this morning. Gone. The cruisers were circling the neighborhood. I could see their lights through the gaps in the garage walls. I grabbed my laptop, found the blue Mustang right where the message said, "Keys under the seat." I opened the trunk. Inside was a duffel bag containing something heavy and technical, looked like a military-grade radio transmitter. A note was taped to it. "If you can't reach Goldstone, this might work. Broadcast on 8.4 gigahertz frequency aimed at 14 degrees above horizon. It's not enough power, but it's something -D." My uncle's handwriting. His backup plan. I threw the duffel in the Mustang's passenger seat, fired up the engine. It roared to life, pure American muscle, probably more power than I needed, but exactly what I wanted right now, and crashed through the garage door before the cruisers could block me in. 3 hours to Goldstone, 68 minutes until midnight, and somewhere in the dark sky something was definitely listening. Interstate 10 stretched across Arizona like a knife cut through dead flesh. I kept the Mustang at 110, weaving through sparse late-night traffic, mostly long-haul truckers and the occasional insomnia-driven sedan. My hands ached from gripping the wheel, my eyes burned from staring at the road, but I couldn't slow down, couldn't stop. Every second counted now. The dashboard clock read 11:03 p.m. 57 minutes until the harvest reached its point of no return. My phone had been silent since dayming. No more helpful messages, no coordinates, no warnings. Either my mysterious ally had been caught, or they'd done all they could. I was on my own, with a laptop full of classified files, a military transmitter I barely understood, and a destination that was still 300 miles away. The radio crackled to life on its own. Not music, not a station. Static that resolved into that clicking, chittering sound I'd heard from the replaced humans. Then a voice, synthesized and wrong. "Blake Coughlin, your continued resistance serves no purpose. The harvest cannot be stopped. Return to Socorro. Submit to processing. Your reintegration will be painless." I punched the radio off. It came back on. "Your species is contaminated, violent, self-destructive. We offer correction, evolution, a chance to join the collective consciousness of peaceful worlds. Why do you resist improvement?" "Because it's not improvement if we're not us anymore," I said to the empty car. "It's murder with extra steps." The radio went silent. Then, "Your uncle understood. In his final moments, he chose erasure over integration. A waste of useful data. Do not repeat his error." My hands tightened on the wheel. They were admitting it. They'd killed Uncle Dennis, or driven him to kill himself. Same difference. "The commander still transmits his rejection," the voice continued. "His biological system fights our protocols even as it sustains him. A paradox, fascinating. We have learned from this. Future integrations will not permit such individuality." I switched off the radio completely, ripped the knob off and threw it out the window. Tucson appeared on the horizon around 11:20, a sprawl of lights that should have meant civilization and safety. Instead, as I got closer, I saw the truth. The entire downtown area was dark, power out, no streetlights, no building illumination, nothing. But on the edges, in parking lots and intersections and shopping center clearings, I saw gatherings, hundreds of people standing perfectly still in geometric patterns, facing the sky. Like sunflowers tracking the sun, except these were tracking something else. Something above. Processing centers. The harvest in action. I took the bypass, avoided the city entirely. Couldn't help them, could barely help myself. But I memorized the image. All those people lined up like products on a conveyor belt, waiting to have their personalities erased and replaced with something docile and useful. West of Tucson, the traffic thinned to nothing. Just me and the empty desert, and the occasional truck stop glowing like an oasis in the darkness. I needed gas. The Mustang's tank was below a quarter, and I still had close to 200 miles to go. But stopping meant exposure, meant slowing down, meant giving them a chance to catch up. Every second I spent at a gas pump was a second closer to midnight. I took the risk at a place called 3 Points, a lonely truck stop that looked like it had been built in the 70s and forgotten about. The only other vehicle was an 18-wheeler with a sleeping driver visible in the cab. I pulled up to the pump, killed the engine, and got out with my credit card. The night air was cold enough to sting my face. The pump screen flickered. Instead of the usual prompts, text appeared. "You're not going to make it, Blake. Goldstone is compromised. They're waiting for you." I stared at the screen, typed on the keypad. Who is this? Someone who used to be human, still fighting the integration. Most of us can't. The programming is too strong, but a few of us, we're holding on glitches in the system. We can't help much. Can only watch. Warn. How do I stop this? You don't, it's already happening. 23 million processed so far. By dawn, it'll be 100 million. By next week, everyone. But you can make them leave broadcast the rejection signal. Mark us as contaminated. They'll abandon Earth, but they'll also destroy the bases, the equipment, everything they've built here over 60,000 years, including us. Everyone who's been processed dies when the bases self-destruct. That's how many? Right now, 23 million. By the time you reach Goldstone, probably 40 million. By dawn, could be 1 billion. You'll be killing all of them to save the rest. Can you live with that? I couldn't answer, couldn't process the math. 1 billion lives traded for 6 billion. The needs of the many outweighing the needs of the few, except those billion people had names, families, dreams. They were victims, not volunteers. The screen went blank. The pump started working normally. I filled the tank with shaking hands, trying not to think about the choice I'd been given. Trying not to imagine Travis standing in some processing center in Alamogordo, his mind being systematically erased and rewritten. Maybe he was already gone. Maybe stopping this would kill him anyway. A semi-truck pulled into the lot, engine rattling in that distinctive diesel way. The driver climbed out, a big guy with a trucker cap and a flannel shirt, maybe 6'2" and 250, moving with the casual confidence of someone who'd driven this route 1,000 times. He stretched, yawned, looked over at me. Hell of a night for a drive. Yeah. I finished fueling, capped the tank, tried to keep my voice steady and normal. You heading west? He started walking toward me, not aggressive, just conversational, the way a stranger might strike up small talk at a rest stop at midnight. Something in his voice made me pause anyway. The cadence was wrong, too measured, too perfect. Like he was reading from a script but trying to sound casual. I looked at his eyes. They reflected the fluorescent lights with that same silver sheen I'd seen in the cop's eyes back on Highway 380. Just stretching my legs, I said, backing toward the Mustang. Long way to Goldstone. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. We've been tracking you since Deming, watching you run. It's admirable, really, your species' capacity for hope in the face of inevitable outcomes. Very human. I got in the car, locked the doors. He walked toward me, not hurrying. You can't transmit the signal, Blake, even if you reach the facility, even if you access the equipment. Your uncle's simulation is incomplete. It's missing the neural component. Without a host, without someone like Commander Jacobson, it won't work. You're driving toward nothing. I started the engine. He put his hand on the hood, and the metal dented under his palm like it was aluminum foil. Stop running, accept the harvest. We're offering your species a gift, peace, purpose, freedom from the violence that has defined you since you first picked up a rock and smashed your neighbor's skull. Don't you want to be better? Not if it means not being me. I reversed hard, threw the car into drive, and peeled out of the lot. In the mirror, I saw him standing there, watching me go with that same empty smile. My phone buzzed, a voice message from a number I didn't recognize. I played it on speaker. Blake, this is Lawrence Hart. I worked with your uncle at White Sands back in the day. If you're hearing this, Dennis is dead and you're carrying his files. Listen carefully. There's something he didn't tell you about the signal. Something I helped him figure out before they replaced me." The voice paused. I heard breathing, labored and wet. "I'm dying. Real dying, not the fake death they've given millions of others. Got maybe an hour left. Cancer. The ironic thing. The processing would have cured it, but I'd rather die human than live as whatever they want to make us. Anyway, the signal, it doesn't need Jacobson. Never did. That was disinformation we spread in case they were monitoring. What it needs is someone who's been exposed to their technology, but hasn't been fully processed. Someone with trace amounts of their programming in their biology." My breath caught. "Blake, your uncle exposed you. Deliberately. 3 years ago at your father's funeral when he pulled you aside. You thought he was drunk, rambling, but he was transmitting. Low-level exposure through physical contact. Planted enough of their nanotech in your system to make you compatible, not enough to control you. Just enough to let you interface with their equipment. The message cut to static, then came back. You're the host. You're the key. Reach Goldstone. Use the equipment in the trunk. Aim at the sky at exactly 11:59:57 p.m. The signal will broadcast through you. It'll hurt like hell. Might kill you. But it'll work. And Blake? I'm sorry. Dennis was sorry too. He knew what he was asking of you. Knew what it might cost. But he also knew you were strong enough to carry it. Good luck. And thank you." The message ended. I pulled over on the shoulder, breath coming in gasps that weren't quite sobs. My uncle had used me, turned me into a weapon without my consent, infected me with alien technology so I could be a living antenna for humanity's last desperate signal. I looked at my hands, wondered what was swimming through my bloodstream, wondered if I could feel it, if some part of me was already not me. The clock read 11:31. 29 minutes to midnight, 180 miles to Goldstone. Mathematically possible if I averaged 120 and didn't hit traffic if nothing else went wrong. If the universe decided to give me just this one break. I got back on the highway and pushed the Mustang to its limit. The engine screamed, the landscape blurred. And somewhere inside me, in my blood, or my bones, or my neurons, something alien waited to be activated. My phone buzzed one final time. Text from Travis's number. "Blake, it's me. I'm okay. They let me go. Meet me at the rest stop in Quartzsite. I have information that can help. Please hurry." I stared at the message. Travis was processed. Had to be. There was no way they'd let him go after what I'd heard on the phone. This was a trap, an obvious one. They were trying to slow me down, make me waste precious minutes driving to Quartzsite so I'd miss the window. But what if it wasn't? What if some part of him was still fighting, still in there, still trying to help? What if that glitch in the system Lawrence mentioned applied to him? What if my cousin was sitting in some rest stop right now, partially processed but still aware, begging whatever remained of his consciousness to reach out to me one last time? Quartzsite was 30 miles out of my way, 15 minutes minimum I didn't have. 15 minutes that could mean the difference between saving billions and watching them all get processed. I kept driving west, ignored the message, hated myself for it. The desert stretched ahead, endless and dark and utterly indifferent to my panic, and somewhere at the end of it was a radio telescope that could either save humanity or doom it, depending on whether a dead engineer's recording was right about what he'd planted inside me 3 years ago at a funeral I barely remembered. 50 miles left to Goldstone, 18 minutes to midnight. I pressed the accelerator to the floor and prayed to a god I wasn't sure I believed in, that I'd make it in time. I hit the California border doing 130. The Mustang's engine was screaming, temperature gauge creeping toward red, but I couldn't ease off. Not now. Not when I was this close. The desert here looked different from New Mexico, sharper somehow, more hostile, like the landscape itself was rejecting human presence. Rock formations jutted up like broken teeth. The air coming through the broken window tasted of dust and distance. The Goldstone Deep Space Communications Complex sat in the Mojave Desert, 40 miles north of Barstow, accessible only by a series of increasingly primitive roads that wound through terrain the military had been using for weapons testing since the 40s, NASA's listening post to the cosmos. 3 massive radio antennas pointed at the sky, tracking distant spacecraft and receiving whispers from the edge of the solar system. During normal operations, it would be crawling with technicians and security. Tonight, as I approached through the back roads Lawrence's message had specified, I prayed it would be empty. I was wrong. The facility's access road was blocked by 3 black SUVs arranged in a V pattern. Men in tactical gear stood behind them, weapons visible but not raised, not military, not police. Something else. As my headlights swept over them, I saw their eyes reflect silver. I slammed the brakes, skidding to a stop 20 yards back, checked the clock. 11:47 p.m., 13 minutes. The duffel bag with the transmitter sat in the passenger seat. According to Lawrence's instructions, I needed to be outside, antenna aimed at 14 degrees above the horizon, broadcasting on 8.4 gigahertz at exactly 11:59:57. 3 seconds before midnight. 3 seconds for the signal to reach whatever network connected the alien bases scattered across Earth. But first I had to get past the roadblock. One of the men walked toward my car. Young guy, maybe late 20s, with a military haircut and a face that looked like it had been assembled by committee. Generically handsome, unmemorable. He stopped 10 feet away and gestured for me to roll down the window. I did, kept my hand near the gear shift. Blake Coughlin, not a question. We've been expecting you. I'm Agent Thornton, Homeland Security. We need you to step out of the vehicle and come with us. Homeland Security doesn't have silver eyes, Thornton. He smiled. It was the same smile the trucker had given me. Technically correct, but missing something essential. A side effect of the integration process irrelevant. What matters is that you've been exposed to uncontrolled alien technology. We need to bring you in for decontamination and assessment. What you need is for me not to transmit that signal. The signal won't work. Your uncle's simulation is based on incomplete data. Even if you broadcast it, the network won't accept it. You'll have exposed yourself to dangerous radiation for nothing. Come with us. Let us help you. I glanced past him at the facility. The main antenna was visible, towering against the stars. A dish 70 meters across, white metal gleaming in the moonlight. Beautiful. Powerful. And completely inaccessible with these things blocking the road. How many people have you processed tonight? I asked. Thornton cocked his head. 43 million as of 20 minutes ago. By dawn, we project 200 million. The process accelerates geometrically once critical infrastructure is secured. You can't stop it, Blake, but you can join it. Become part of something greater than yourself. Imagine a world without war, without hatred, without the constant violence that has defined your species since the beginning. Imagine a world where everyone thinks the same thoughts and follows the same orders, where art dies because there's no conflict to inspire it, where love means nothing because everyone loves everyone equally. That's not evolution, that's extinction with a prettier name. You don't understand what we're offering. I understand you're wearing a dead man's face and calling it improvement. His smile vanished. Last chance. Exit the vehicle. I punched the accelerator instead. The Mustang surged forward. Thornton dove left. I aimed for the gap between 2 SUVs, praying the Mustang's frame was solid enough to force through. Metal screamed against metal. The windshield cracked. Then I was past, fishtailing onto the access road that led up the hill toward the facility. Gunfire cracked behind me. Bullets punched through the trunk, the rear window. One hit the passenger seat inches from the duffel bag. I kept my head down and drove, weaving to make myself a harder target. The main gate was closed but unmanned. I didn't slow down. The Mustang crashed through chain link and wooden barriers, shredding tires and destroying the front bumper, but momentum carried me through. The facility opened up ahead, parking lots, equipment buildings, and in the center, the massive antenna array. I skidded to a stop next to the operations building, grabbed the duffel bag, and ran. The clock on my phone read 11:51, 9 minutes. The operations building door was locked. I kicked it. Solid steel wouldn't budge. My shoulder was already bruised from the crash through the gate. Behind me, I heard engines. The SUVs had followed through the destroyed entrance, their headlights sweeping the facility grounds. They were coordinating, spreading out to cut off escape routes. I ran around the building's perimeter, boots slapping on concrete, lungs burning. Found a window on the east side, smashed it with the transmitter case, and climbed through, cut my arm on broken glass, but barely felt it over the adrenaline screaming through my system. Inside was dark except for emergency lighting. Rows of computers, all powered down. Banks of equipment I didn't recognize. I needed to get outside, to the antenna base, but the SUVs were circling the building. They'd see me the moment I emerged. My phone buzzed, text message, loading dock, north side, doors open, leads to antenna platform, go now. I ran through the building, following glowing exit signs, found the loading dock, a roll-up door standing open like the message promised. Whoever was helping me, whoever was fighting their integration enough to send these messages, they were still out there, still resisting. I stepped into the night air. The antenna towered above me, a cathedral of metal and precision engineering. A maintenance ladder ran up the side of the support structure to a platform 30 feet up. That would work. That would give me the height I needed. I started climbing, duffel bag slung over my shoulder, laptop tucked in my jacket. The metal was cold enough to sting my palms. 11 minutes left. The ladder rungs were slightly damp with condensation from the temperature difference between day and night desert air. My cut arm left blood on the metal, dark streaks that caught the moonlight. Each rung took me higher, further from the ground, closer to the stars. Halfway up, I heard voices below. Thornton and his people, spreading out around the antenna base. They weren't shooting anymore. Maybe they were afraid of damaging the equipment, or maybe they knew I couldn't escape. I reached the platform and set up the transmitter, hands shaking from adrenaline and exhaustion. The device looked like a military radio merged with a satellite dish. With cables that connected to my laptop, I followed Lawrence's notes. Power on, frequency set to 8.4 gigahertz, angle adjusted to 14 degrees. The laptop connected via a cable, loading the signal file Uncle Dennis had spent 15 years creating. 11:56. Below, Thornton called up. "Blake, it's over. You can't transmit from there. The equipment isn't properly grounded. You'll fry the moment you activate it. Is that how you want to die? Electrocuted trying to broadcast a signal that won't work." Maybe he was right. Maybe this was suicide. But what was the alternative? Climb down and let them process me? Let them turn me into another silver-eyed puppet mouthing platitudes about peace and perfection? I opened the final file on the laptop. A video. Uncle Dennis, recorded probably days before he died. He looked terrible, jaundiced, shaking, eyes red from crying or drinking or both. "Blake," he said, "if you're watching this, you made it to Goldstone. I'm proud of you. Prouder than I ever told you when I was alive. And I'm sorry for what I did to you at your father's funeral. Sorry for making you the weapon instead of being it myself, but I was a coward. Drank myself numb rather than face what needed to be done." He coughed, wiped his mouth. "The signal will hurt. Lawrence probably told you that. What he might not have told you is that it'll hurt bad enough to kill you. The nanotech in your system will activate, try to stop the transmission, and in the process, it'll tear you apart from the inside. Your heart will stop. Your brain will hemorrhage. You'll die before you hit the ground." My hand froze on the keyboard. "But you'll die human," Dennis continued, "and you'll die having saved billions from losing what makes them human. That's worth something, that's worth everything. I wish I'd been brave enough to do it myself. Since I wasn't, I'm asking you, begging you, finish this. Send the signal, mark us as contaminated, make them leave. And Blake," his voice broke, "I love you. I'm sorry I never said it when I could." The video ended. 11:58. I could climb down, run, find somewhere to hide while the harvest completed. Live another day, even if that day was as a processed puppet in a peaceful world. Or I could press enter, activate the transmission. Die screaming while my biology tore itself apart. Save billions. Kill millions already processed. Become either a martyr or a mass murderer, depending on how history remembered this moment. Below, Thornton and his people started climbing the ladder. They'd be here in mere seconds. I thought about Travis, about Uncle Dennis, about Commander Jacobson, kept alive for 47 years by alien technology he couldn't control, about all the people standing in parking lots across the world, waiting to be erased and remade into something docile and useful. I thought about what it meant to be human, the good and the bad, the violence and the art, the hatred and the love, all of it tangled together, inseparable, messy and beautiful, and absolutely worth preserving, even if it meant dying to save it. 11:59:45. I angled the antenna at the sky, connected the final cable, placed my finger on the enter key. Stop! Thornton's head appeared at the platform edge. Blake, please. You'll kill millions. They're already integrated. They'll die when the bases self-destruct. Is that what you want? To be a murderer? I want, I said slowly, to be human. 11:59:57. I pressed enter, the signal transmitted, and the world exploded into terrible, white-hot, all-consuming pain. The pain started in my chest and spread like liquid fire through every nerve ending in my body. The nanotech Uncle Dennis had planted in me 3 years ago activated all at once, trying to stop the transmission, trying to shut me down. I could feel them. Millions of microscopic machines tearing through tissue, severing connections, rewriting code at the cellular level. My blood felt carbonated, fizzing with activity. My bones ached with pressure from the inside. The machines were fighting against my biology's desperate attempt to keep broadcasting the signal, and the battlefield was my entire nervous system. I screamed, couldn't help it. The sound ripped from my throat, raw and animal, echoing off the antenna dish above me. My fingers locked around the laptop in a death grip I couldn't release even if I'd wanted to. Below me, Thornton stopped climbing, his face contorted, not with concern, but with concentration, like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. Then his expression went slack, and he fell, just released his grip on the ladder and dropped 30 feet to the concrete below. Landed wrong, didn't move. The other replaced humans around the antenna base were collapsing too. All of them, simultaneously, like puppets with cut strings. I watched through eyes that were starting to hemorrhage, vision going red at the edges as they fell and didn't get up. The signal was working. My laptop screen showed a map of Earth with dots representing alien bases. As I watched, they started winking out. 1 in Nevada, 3 under the Arctic ice, a massive complex beneath the Sahara, another in the Mariana Trench. The signal was propagating through their network, triggering emergency protocols, marking humanity as too dangerous to harvest contaminated. Quarantined. The bases were self-destructing, and everyone integrated with them was dying. I tried to let go of the laptop, tried to stop the transmission, but my hands wouldn't respond. The nanotech had paralyzed everything except my heart and lungs, keeping me alive just long enough to finish broadcasting. I was a transmitter now, nothing more. A human antenna burning itself out to save a species that might not have deserved saving. Blood ran from my nose, my ears, my eyes. I could taste copper. My vision tunneled to a pinpoint. But I could still see the map, still see the bases winking out one by one, 90% destroyed. 95. 98. My heart stuttered, stopped, started again with a jolt that felt like lightning. Somewhere in Alamogordo, Travis died. Not the thing wearing his face, Travis himself, whatever remained of him after processing. I felt it somehow, felt the moment his consciousness winked out along with 43 million others. 43 million murders on my hands. 43 million people who might have been saved if I'd just waited, just tried to find another way. But 6 billion would live. 6 billion would remain human, flawed and violent and beautiful and free. The transmission completed. 12 hours, 0 minutes, 3 seconds AM, November 14th, 2023. I fell. The platform rushed away above me. The sky wheeled. I had maybe 2 seconds of freefall before I hit the ground, and in those 2 seconds I thought about my father's funeral, about Uncle Dennis pulling me aside with whiskey breath and shaking hands, pressing his palm against my neck like a blessing, planting the seeds of my own destruction. turning me into the weapon he couldn't be. I thought about Commander Jacobson, kept alive for 47 years by technology he couldn't control, waiting for someone to finish what he'd started on Mars in 1976. I thought about the alien base out there on the red planet, still functional, still cataloguing species from across the galaxy. Entry 10,847 humanity, marked as contaminated, quarantined. Too dangerous to harvest, too interesting to destroy completely. We'd bought ourselves time, bought ourselves isolation, bought ourselves the chance to either destroy ourselves on our own terms or evolve past the violence that had almost gotten us erased. I hit the ground, everything went white, then black, then nothing. I woke up in a hospital room 3 days later, though at first I didn't know where I was or how much time had passed. The ceiling tiles had water stains that looked like continents. Fluorescent lights hummed a frequency that made my damaged skull ache. Machines beeped steadily beside me, tracking vitals that shouldn't have existed anymore. That shouldn't have been possible. Lawrence's message said I'd die. Uncle Dennis's video said the nanotech would tear me apart. Every piece of information I'd received suggested transmitting the signal was a one-way trip, a sacrifice play, trading my life for billions of others. But I was alive, still breathing, still thinking, still feeling. Broken, 17 fractured bones, internal bleeding that had required 4 surgeries, traumatic brain injury that the neurologist said would leave permanent cognitive damage, organ damage the doctors said should have killed me 10 times over. But alive, undeniably, impossibly alive. The nurse who found me conscious started crying. She'd been changing my IV when my eyes opened, and she just stood there with tears running down her face, repeating, "Thank God, thank God, thank God." I tried to ask what happened, but my throat was too damaged. Weeks of intubation had left me unable to speak above a whisper. She brought me paper and a pen. "What happened?" I wrote. "How many?" She understood what I was asking. 46 million, she said quietly. Worldwide, they just stopped, all at once, like something inside them died. The government's calling it a neurological event, some kind of mass stroke caused by industrial pollution or 5G towers or whatever explanation keeps people from panicking. But the rest of us, everyone who wasn't in a processing center that night, we're okay. We're still us. I closed my eyes. 46 million, 3 million more than I'd thought. 3 million more deaths on my conscience. "You're a hero," the nurse said. "That's what they're saying. The guy who crashed into Goldstone and somehow triggered a failsafe that stopped the harvest. They found you at the base of the antenna with a transmitter broadcasting on frequencies that disrupted the alien technology. You saved everyone." I wasn't a hero. Heroes didn't kill 46 million people. Heroes found better ways. But I was alive, which meant I'd have to live with what I'd done. The government debriefed me for months. Men in suits who showed up every week with identical briefcases and carefully neutral expressions. They asked careful questions and took detailed notes and never once acknowledged that aliens had been replacing humans for decades. That an ancient race had been cataloguing Earth for 60,000 years. That 46 million people had died because of technology we barely understood. The official story was terrorist attack, mass psychosis, environmental toxin, anything but the truth. They confiscated Uncle Dennis's files, every scrap of paper and digital record. They classified everything related to Viking 3 above top secret. And they made it very clear, without ever explicitly threatening me, that talking about what really happened would result in consequences I wouldn't enjoy. Maybe an accident. Maybe just disappearing. They never specified. I didn't care. Let them bury the truth. The people who mattered knew. The resistance network Dennis and Lawrence had built. The glitches in the system who'd fought their integration long enough to help me. They knew what had happened. They knew we'd won, barely by the slimmest of margins. Commander Jacobson died the night I transmitted the signal. The technology keeping him alive shut down when the bases self-destructed. He'd been waiting 47 years for that moment. I hoped it brought him peace. Travis's funeral was small. Just me and his mother and a handful of friends who didn't understand why he'd been in Alamogordo during the neurological event. I didn't tell them the truth. What would be the point? He was gone either way. I scattered some of Uncle Dennis's ashes at the ceremony. Seemed fitting. They'd both died so humanity could remain human. 6 months after that night, I went back to White Sands, back to the bunker where I'd met Jacobson. It was empty, cleared out, no sign anyone had ever been there. But when I stood in the desert at sunset, I could still hear his voice. I'm already dead, have been since 1976. Now get out of here and save the rest of us. I'd saved 6 billion. I'd killed 46 million. The math said it was worth it. The nightmares disagreed. I drove out to Trinity site where we'd scattered Uncle Dennis's ashes 6 months earlier. The desert looked the same. Endless, hostile, indifferent to human suffering. I stood where the first atomic bomb had been detonated in 1945, where humanity first proved we could destroy ourselves without any alien help. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. For a second, I thought it might be another message from the resistance, another warning about threats I couldn't imagine. Instead, it was a link to a news article. NASA receives mysterious signal from Mars. The article described a transmission detected by Goldstone 3 days ago, broadcasting on frequencies that matched the Viking 1 lander. Except Viking 1 had been dead since 1982. The signal was a sequence of numbers, 10,847. Our designation in the alien catalogue, the number I'd been seeing everywhere before that night in November. They were still out there, still watching, still cataloguing. We'd bought ourselves time, bought ourselves quarantine, but the experiment wasn't over. It would never be over. Humanity would evolve or destroy itself, and in 1,000 years or 10,000 or 1,000,000 they'd come back. Check their data, see if we'd learned anything, see if we'd survived ourselves. I deleted the article, let NASA figure it out, let the government classify it. I'd done my part, paid my price, let someone else carry the weight of knowing we weren't alone, that we were being watched, that every choice we made was being recorded and judged by intelligences we couldn't comprehend. I got in my truck and drove back to Albuquerque to my apartment, to my ordinary life that would never be ordinary again. I had 46 million ghosts following me, and I'd carry them until the day I died. Every face I passed on the street could have been one of them, every stranger in a coffee shop, every person I'd never meet, but I'd carry them as a human, free and flawed and guilty and alive, still capable of choice, still capable of change, still capable of becoming something better than what we'd been. That had to count for something, had to mean something in the vast, indifferent cosmos. It had to be enough, because it was all we really had left. 5 years later, I'm teaching astronomy at a community college in Santa Fe when the dreams start again. Not nightmares about the fall or the 46 million faces. Those never stopped. I've learned to function with them, to wake at 3 in the morning and pretend the screaming in my head is just tinnitus. These dreams are different. In them, I'm standing on Mars, red sand under my boots, thin atmosphere making each breath feel insufficient, and in front of me, half buried in dust, is the base. The same structure Commander Jacobson described, the same alien facility where humanity was catalogued as species 10,847. Except in the dreams, the door is open, waiting, and I can hear something inside, clicking, chittering. The sound the replaced humans made. I wake up with sand in my mouth, real sand, Martian red, the same composition they found in Jacobson's lungs 47 years ago. I tell myself it's psychosomatic, stress manifestation, my brain processing trauma through symbolism. But every morning there's more sand in my bed, under my fingernails, between my teeth. My students notice I'm distracted. "Professor Coughlin, are you okay?" they ask, and I tell them I'm fine, just tired, just getting old. I'm 32, but I feel ancient. Feel like I've lived a dozen lifetimes in the 5 years since Goldstone. The government checks in quarterly, different suits, same questions. Any unusual symptoms? Any signals from Mars? I tell them no. They don't need to know about the sand, about the dreams. about the way I sometimes catch my reflection and see silver in my eyes just for a second. Last week, NASA announced a manned mission to Mars, 2028, landing near Cydonia Mensae to investigate geological anomalies. In the background of their photos, barely visible through dust storms, I could see it, the base. They're going back. I should warn them. Tell someone the door is open, something is waiting that our quarantine might not hold. But who would believe me? Viking 3 never happened. The harvest never occurred. 46 million died of a neurological anomaly. The truth died with Uncle Dennis and the others. Except it didn't die, because I'm still here, still carrying it, still waking up with Martian sand in my mouth and the sound of alien machinery clicking in my ears, growing louder each night. This morning I found something new, not sand. A small piece of metal, maybe an inch long, that looks like a circuit board but moves when I touch it. Pulses with faint blue light. Organic technology. The same kind that was inside Jacobson's chest. It was under my pillow. I should be terrified. Should be calling the government handlers. Should be checking into a hospital. Should be doing anything except what I'm actually doing, which is packing a bag. Because the dreams aren't just dreams anymore, they're invitations. And the base on Mars isn't empty. It's waiting. Has been waiting for 5 years for this moment. Waiting for the human who transmitted the rejection signal. Waiting for species 10,847's designated representative to return. Waiting for me. The NASA mission launches in 3 years, but I don't think I have that long. The sand is getting worse, the metal pieces more frequent. Whatever they planted in me at Goldstone, or maybe it was always there, dormant since Uncle Dennis touched me at the funeral. It's activating, calling me home to a planet I've never visited, to finish what Jacobson started in 1976, what my uncle couldn't finish himself. The experiment isn't over, it's just entering its final next phase.